Well, at ease, paratroopers, and welcome back to the Enduring Mindset podcast. I'm your host, retired Army Staff Sergeant Kevin Kidder. Today's guest is Becky Scheusner, a Navy veteran, Brown University graduate, and mentor working with military affiliated students at Brown University. What started as a simple outreach conversation turned into one of the most honest and insightful discussions I've had on this show. We talk about transition, identity, higher education, self doubt, military culture, and what it means to walk into rooms where you're not sure you belong. Becky shares her journey from a small town in Kansas to the Navy to becoming a single mom while pursuing higher education to eventually finding her place at one of the most respected universities in the world. But more than that, this conversation is really about possibility. It's about not self selecting out of opportunities before giving yourself a chance. It's about understanding that your military service can be part of your identity without being the end of your story. And it's about learning that growth often begins the moment you stop asking whether you belong in the room. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has been supporting the show and supporting the launch of my upcoming book, The Invisible Veteran: Rediscovering Purpose, Identity, and Connection After Service. The book officially releases May 26th. Pre-orders are available right now through my publisher, Ballast Books. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, and Walmart. A lot of the conversations you hear on this podcast, including today's episode, are really at the heart of what the book is about: identity, transition, purpose, and finding your place again after life changes. Here's my conversation with Becky. Let's get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Enduring Mindset podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Becky Scheusner. Becky and I met a few weeks ago. I had done some reaching out to see if I could link up with veteran students at different universities, and Becky responded from Brown University. And during our initial conversation, she shared her story with me, and I found it fascinating. And I asked if she would be a guest on the podcast, and she graciously accepted. So you guys get to experience what I did not too long ago. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And how humbling for someone to say that your story like resonated with them. Like you live it and it's just yours, right? You don't think anything of it and then someone says that it resonated with them and you're like, "Wow, okay, great."
Yeah,
So
it
thank you.
really did though. It's similar thread that's very unique. And I call it's very Becky. Like I love what you're gonna share. Before we get in the meat and potatoes, like I do with every episode, I'm gonna read a question from Brett Ledbetter's 365 questions to get to know yourself and your team better. I met Brett last year in April at a conference in Los Angeles. His breakout session was the art of asking better questions, and he got to talk about the book. And his concept was when you meet with clients, don't do the regular goofy icebreakers that no one cares about. Let's get to know each other better. And I've taken that approach and made it my own with the podcast. And I love what you said. No one's done it. And I want to know what his thought process was. So we're going with question 365. And as per usual, his question, he does do two-part questions. So part one, you know yourself better than anyone. What would be your biggest hesitation in following you as a leader?
Oh,
It's really
biggest
good.
hesitation in following me as a leader. Oh, I think it is, and this might sound odd. I think if your guests re-listen to this episode, they might wonder what I mean by this. But I think my lack of experience. I think that is what people would be hesitant. Why they'd be hesitant to follow me because on paper, like when you're writing a resume. You write it in a certain way and you sort of establish yourself as a certain kind of expert, especially if you do the thing that you're supposed to do, which is write your resume based on the specific job that you're trying to
Yep.
apply for. If you do that, then I tend to look a very certain way that does not really look like a leader, especially not someone who spent time in the military, doing the things that I think a lot of people associate with being a leader. So I don't look like a leader on paper. And I think my lack of experience on paper is why people wouldn't want to follow me.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Very self-aware. I get that. And then if you wanted to, how would you work on that moving forward?
Gosh. So I think being more honest with the fact that I really enjoy talking to people, and I think I'm
Mhm.
kind of good at it because I like people. Um, and I hope that comes through in this this episode.
Oh, it
Otherwise,
absolutely will.
I just like shoved my foot right in my mouth. But yeah, I think that that is, like, just really getting in the weeds with that part of my personality, I think will help, establish me, as a stronger leader.
I like that. And you are good with people. I mean, what was going to be a 15-20 minute conversation. I think we talked for 45 minutes. And then it's just like, wow, I just sat there. I was like, she's got to come on the show. This is so cool. You are great with people. And I think that's part of probably why you excel at what you do around university. But before we get there, let's learn a little bit about you. Where are you from? What shaped you growing up?
Oh my gosh. So I grew up in Kansas, and like a lot of people in the military, you come from a small town that a lot of people haven't heard of, and you look at the military as, at least in in years past, people looked at it as like the way out. And I think there was a big part of me that thought of it as the way out. I knew that I wasn't ready for college, but I like maturity wise, I wasn't ready for college, but I also um, knew that I needed to establish myself as an adult because my parents were, I'm the baby of four, and my parents were like, all right, you're 18, see you later. So I just saw the writing on the wall. And, if you asked me when I joined the delayed entry program when I was 17, but I didn't go to boot camp until I was 18. But at that time, if you had asked me, why are you joining the Navy? I would have said, oh, well, it's because I want to do something bigger than myself. And I think that was true. I do believe that that was true. But I think it was because I had come from this small town where everybody knew everybody. Um, and I just wanted to go somewhere where like maybe people didn't know me. and and I could become something more than Becky in Lansing.
Mhm.
Right, and I grew up in Lansing, Kansas, which is right outside of Fort Leavenworth, um, which military people might be more familiar with because it's where the disciplinary barracks are. And my dad worked there. My dad was an Air Force security police person. Gosh, it was the same job you had, right?
Yeah, MP. Yeah, he was security forces. Yeah.
Right, right, right. I remember I have these really funny memories of the whole family in the middle. My dad always worked nights, and my mom would drive him to work in the middle of the night, and all of us were in the car. And I have these like weird memories. I was like a really sleepy, like toddler, and I remember seeing the gate of the disciplinary barracks, like, in my dreams. So so I grew up in a town where the prison culture was actually very strong, and I know that
Mhm.
sounds weird. That was, like, the industry. And I'm not really sure that that shaped how I am today, but it is sort of like a fun fact. But there really was a pretty strong, religious culture in, growing up, and, I went to a fantastic church where, it was a Disciple of Christ church, and I talk about, formative moments of my life. I had a Sunday school teacher who, she was also an English teacher, at a junior high, and she actively, like, supported us asking questions, like, really hard questions about religion and life in general, and I think that, that experience taught me that it's okay and good to question the world around you, not just religion, but like the world around you. And in doing that, I think that specifically that Sunday school classroom helped me, I don't know, I guess think about how I wanted to position my own. skepticism and excitement about the future and the world and all of that. That sounds very, big picture, I guess, as like a middle school kid. But um, like I think growing up, I thought the world was this big,
Mhm.
and I started to realize slowly over time that the world was really, really big, and then I joined the Navy.
And then you found out how big it really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I taught high school English for a year, I've coached for several years, and, when you're in positions of influence like that, you have the ability to help young people expand their mind. I love that. That's my dad always told me growing up, challenge conventional wisdom and thinking, in the military and in law enforcement. One of the most dangerous phrases is, "That's the way we've always done things." And that, that stifles growth, and it can be detrimental to a person, a team, and an organization. So I'm glad you found somebody who allowed you to pursue that creativity and to challenge thinking like that as a young person. Um, what led you to go to the Navy?
Well, I told you I was the baby of 4.
Mhm.
Um, my sister took a very traditional path. She went to college, did that thing. Both of my brothers joined the Navy. And all 3 of it, we did it 1 year right after the other, 3 years in a row. And I think it was kind of yes, I wanna do something bigger than myself, all those things I already talked about. It was also like a path that had been laid out in front of me. Like I saw other people doing it and it didn't
Mhm.
seem that scary. Like it was unknown because I would be the first girl in my family to go to boot camp. But also it was like, yeah, sure. I don't know. Why not? Um, and I also decided so when a lot of your audience is probably military affiliated, so they understand when you sign a contract, you either have a job or you don't. Um,
Yes.
I did have a job. I signed up to be a Navy corpsman originally, and, under I don't know, like, the I this was before 9/11, so I had a little more leverage with, options. So I
Mhm.
signed up to be a corpsman, but then I also scheduled an audition to try to be in the band. And, it my audition was the day before I started boot camp. So,
Oh,
it's
wow.
like right, like the height of pressure. And I auditioned. I didn't think that I would get in, but, like, I traveled to, Great Lakes with my mom on a train and had never been on a train before, and neither had my mom, so this was, like, a whole new experience for both of us. And, I, uh, I had my saxophone. It was like the high school's saxophone because I didn't have one of my own. So I had to audition on saxophone, which is not my main instrument, and flute and piccolo, which was also the high school's instrument. So 2 high school instruments, one of mine and my mom. And, the idea was I would go do my audition, then my mom would take my instruments back with her, and it was like letting my babies go. Like, um, but yeah, I did the audition, and I will never forget they asked me to play the piccolo solo for Stars and Stripes twice.
Wow.
And yeah, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, did I mess up so bad that they're asking me to do it twice?" I don't know why they asked me to do it again. I could have been so bad that they needed to make sure that I screwed up, and they were like, "Let's give her another chance." I don't know. But yeah, it ended up that, they accepted me into the band program and, went to boot camp, and then my RDCs found out I was in the band, and, RDCs like drill sergeants, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, they found out I was in the band and, which generally means that you're not gonna be on a ship doing the same things that other people are doing. So
Mhm.
they made me the laundry petty officer. So I had to wash the underwear of all of the girls in my division. It was the worst job, but on the bright side, like, or the silver lining is that's the one really, really awful job that I had. So I'm grateful that I got it out of the way.
I love it, and the military can be really stereotypical at some time. It's like, oh, yeah, this amazing person with an incredible skill. Probably nobody else in that entire division could do what you do. And like, how do they reward you? Are you everybody's stinky laundry? Ah, awesome. Thank you.
I
I
mean,
like.
whatever. You do what you gotta do, right?
Oh, yeah. Basic training boot camp. It's college condensed into like, 4 months. It's all of the experiences. Drinking from a fire hose. It's incredible. I love how you talked about the path was kind of laid out before you. One of my previous guests, Riley Tejak, she's a Marine Corps captain. She was an Olympic bobsledder, just phenomenal human being. She wrote a children's book called "If You Can Dream It, Be It," and it's kind of the same thing. It's for kids who have never seen a Marine or even a woman Marine or a woman in uniform, and even as an adult, it's great because if you've never seen something, it's a lot harder to picture it being possible or plausible. So, your parents saw your older siblings go in the military and then you went, and I like it. It's kind of funny you said you're giving your babies away, but here your mom is getting ready to do the same thing the next day when you go off to boot camp. Um,
Oh, she cried a
I bet.
lot.
Yeah. When I joined, I went to MEPS by myself. I was almost 19, or was I 19? Yeah, I think I was 19. Um, so I went to MEPS by myself and shipped to Leonard Wood from, Spokane, Washington. So I didn't have to do that to my mom. But for those unfamiliar with the military music program, what does that role actually involve? I have a teacher at the school I work for now. She's in the Army, and she plays the violin.
Yeah, well, every service is different. Every single service is different. Um, and honestly, the Navy music program has changed a lot even since I joined. So I joined again before 9/11. I
Mhm.
was at A school when that happened,
Oh.
and yeah, that was a pretty formative moment, I think.
Mhm.
Um, but the when you're a military musician, that is your job, and I think that's the confusing part for a lot of people is, they think because, like, in boot camp in the Navy, you can be in the recruit band, but you're doing other things, like, you're not
Mhm.
just in the band, you're, learning all of the like, firefighting and all of that other stuff, but my actual job in the military was being a musician. And then the next question is, well, why? Well, the military and you could put the term propaganda on it, right? Like propaganda can be it can run the spectrum of positive and negative, right?
Mhm.
Um and I like to think that a lot of the propaganda that we represented was very positive. It was like my husband has been on a humanitarian deployment. He plays trumpet in the Navy, and I didn't have the experience of being part of a humanitarian mission, but that is a big part of what military bands do.
Mhm.
And I did actually have a wonderful experience when I was stationed in New Orleans. I was there during Hurricane Katrina, and we evacuated from New Orleans for several weeks.
Mm.
And when we returned, it was there really weren't a lot of people in the Gulf area, like in Biloxi, that area, because the infrastructure just wasn't there. Like it couldn't support people returning, and there was one particular gig where we were asked to play, but there really weren't a lot of people there, and we performed a full concert, and I mean, like, the entire band, right? A full concert for this very small community, and it was just the most emotional experience I think I've had as a military musician, and, um, those are the kinds of experiences that you would have, um in military music that I don't think you would have in other music, jobs. Like, I think if you're in an orchestra, you might have this, like, really cool performance, but you're not playing for people returning from, having lost all of their belongings and all of that. Um so that was an incredible experience, where I felt the true meaning of my work was, right in front of me. But honestly, most of what we did was just performing at ceremonies,
Yeah.
what you would envision, like, retirement ceremonies or changes of command, like that kind of thing. But the ones that are truly meaningful was stuff like that. I've played at memorial services.
Mm.
I had a really cool experience, meeting President, George H.W. Bush and his family when they commissioned the George Bush, the big carrier, right?
Yeah.
They this was so cool. It was, a woodwind trio. So if you're unfamiliar with what that looks like, it's a flute, which was me, a clarinetist, and a bassoonist. And, we performed for the family breakfast that they had before the big ceremony, and it was
That's
so
so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yep.
Wow.
I looked up and I
And
was like, "There's Condoleezza Rice."
I I love how you mentioned the spectrum of propaganda because words take on their own identity, and propaganda has such a negative connotation in our vernacular these days. And when you were mentioning being able to play, it brought me to my favorite TV series, which is Band of Brothers. And in the breaking point after Beth Stone, there's a scene where the remaining um, dozens of Easy Company, of the second of the 506, they're looking at their casualties, who was left, and getting ready for the next phase. And they're in a chapel, they're in a church, and during Germany, of course, um, and they bring in a choir, to a youth choir, and the children are singing, and it's music has a way of um, doing things and emoting things that we can't do with words. And it's just one of those powerful memories. Like, people can poo poo on anything, but in that moment, the one thing that really brought solace was voice. And whether you do it with voice, if you do it with instruments, music is a really powerful thing. Um, I'm just glad you brought that up. So,
I
music,
think
I am
s
musically illiterate. It demands timing and precision and consistency. Have those habits carried over into other aspects of your life?
Yeah, I think I've kinda always, um, had those habits, and and being a musician really, I honed them.
Mhm.
Into and today I stand before you a super nerd. I think I think because, I will get hyper focused on something and really excited about something, I will just go forth and, like, learn as much as I possibly can about that. Like, I could talk to you about almost anything. I have, we'll get to my work at Brown University, but, I have students who, with very technical backgrounds,
Mhm.
in comparison to mine. I am not in the heavy sciences, but I know enough to know the words that they say have certain meanings, and I can
Mhm.
start connecting dots, and I'll ask them guiding questions, and they'll explain to me, like, whatever it is that they might be building or trying to figure out. And it's such so for me, being able to, take the I don't know, that, hyper focused, um, aspect of my personality and apply it to my nerdiness. It's I feel like I've blossomed, like, my brain sort of
Yeah.
exploded when I went to college because I was like, "There's all these things I can learn," and I got really excited.
You just hit probably my favorite thing about higher education, which is there's so much to learn, and it's infuriating to work in education at the high school level sometimes, because that it's not being presented in that manner. It's not being presented as an opportunity to learn, or you have somebody at home who says, "You're gonna study business, you're gonna study finance, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that," which is fine. You wanna provide, some guidance to your kids. My son studies commercial music. Um, it was a big part of his life, and I didn't know there was an opportunity to study it. until I heard that Zach Brown band. The lead singer Zach, he studied in like he majored in music, like he knows how to compose. That's why their songs are so powerful. And um, yeah, it's just there's so much you can study. It's so much more than just an MBA or engineering. There's so much you can do. Um, what did the military structure do for you personally as a young person to set you up for success and now obviously being incredible at Brown University?
Oh, I think, what military structure kind of did for me was, it provided a framework for
Mm.
adulthood. Um, and I hear people talk about it in different ways, like, "Oh, the military gave me discipline, it gave me this, gave me that." I don't think that that was necessarily true for me. I had a level of discipline. I'm a rule follower, right? Like, you give me a set of rules, I'm like, "All right, those are my guardrails, and I'm not gonna deviate from that." Now, I mean, like, that can hold me back sometimes, to be honest. But, I think when, um when I'm thinking about, like, the positive things that I got from being in the military, it was that framework to say, "Okay, you have a paycheck." Before I joined the Navy, I never had a regular paycheck. Like, I worked at home at my mom's daycare, and my paycheck
Right.
was that my parents let me live there, and they paid for my food, you know? Um, so all of a sudden I had money and I was kind of afraid to use it. So it sat in my bank account. And then I learned from my command financial specialist that you invest your money in this thing and then it will make more. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. So I learned these like little breadcrumbs of
Mhm.
adulthood along the way. And I don't know that I think colleges do a better job of this now than they used to, but I think when you go to college, a lot of that is just sort of like it's on you, man. It's like you got to figure that out.
Mhm.
And unless you have a really cool university where they're actively teaching you that, or you have an amazing set of people around you who are helping you through that, you're just not going to learn that. So I'm really glad I joined the military for sure.
I love that, and I love that you. I mean, you're just a curious and inquisitive person by nature. It seems like, but to ask questions like, "Okay, I've never had this before. What's the best way for me to steward this?" And for people that are in now, or if you're recently got out and finances are tough because you do take a pretty big financial hit when you leave the military. Um, I cannot talk about investing enough. I don't know what I'm talking about, but find someone who is smart in that realm and start setting aside some of that money so it can work for you later in date. I'm really glad you said that. Was there a part of your military identity that you valued the most and kind of miss now that you're no longer in, or was it just nope, I'm done and I'm going to move on to the next phase of my life?
I think I was really done. Um, I I did not. Um, I think part of why I didn't receive leadership positions in the military was that I don't think I fit in. I don't think I fit the mold
Hmm.
of the like what people assume would be a good leader. I'm very much aware of how I look, and I don't walk into a room and command it. I don't. I wait for someone to give me the authority to do something. Again, rule follower, right?
Hmm.
Even though I am an expert in certain things, I am very well read. I am very knowledgeable about things. But until I have this barrier in my brain, and I'm saying this out loud so that maybe other people hear that and they go, "Oh, that's
Yes,
kind
thank
of
you.
me."
Hmm.
I hear have this like unspoken barrier in my brain that I have to have someone tell me that I can do something before I do it. And that is that's a big old challenge, you know?
Yeah.
Um and dang it, I forgot what the question was. Ask me one
It
more
was
time.
just no, as you transitioned, was it easy? Did you were
Mm,
like people like me absolutely struggle taking off the uniform, but others have found it
mm.
more seamless.
Right. Okay. So, again, like I didn't fit in, quote unquote, you know? I know people can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes. Um, you, um, so when I was transitioning out, I slowly started to figure out where I did fit in, and it started to feel really good.
Mm,
I started taking college classes, near I was, like, 2 years out-ish, you know, and nothing crazy. It was like, I'm gonna take a college algebra class. I'm gonna take Spanish 1, and English 101, right? And I found that I loved being in an academic setting. It was so enjoyable and fun to make my brain think in that way. And to have someone say, I want you to think outside the box. I was like, whoa, really? You you're not gonna like prescribe to me how to do this? Okay.
mhm,
That was a really awesome experience. And then I started to realize that again, like I think I'm good at talking with people and I enjoy doing that. And so I started to think about where like what kind of professional education would I need to continue doing that and to get really good at it? And that I think made my transition easy because I had something in mind that I wanted afterwards and I didn't
mhm.
feel like I needed to hold on to what was going on behind me. I could keep looking forward and that excited me. So I think if um to help someone with a transition, I think it's that it's like switching your focus from behind you to what's coming in an excited sort of way rather than a like scary, oh my gosh. Because like the truth is, I don't care how old you were when you joined or how old you are at the end of it, but like everybody's got to get out. You can't
Right.
stay in forever.
Yeah.
So look at that future in an excited kind of way.
It really should be exciting. This is in the book, and the title of the book is "The Invisible Veteran: Reclaiming, Rediscovering Purpose, Identity, and Connection After Service." The identity part, I think, is the biggest challenge, um, and I think the way you said it is perfect. You're going on a new journey. It's a new adventure. You should be excited about it, and I love that you knew, like, you started finding out. Oh, I enjoy this. Like some of us, man, you got to get rid of those preconceived notions. You have to figure out what makes you happy. If it's education, awesome. If it's Dungeons and Dragons, awesome. If it's sports, find out what it is. I guarantee you there's a college or university in the country that teaches it and you can become an expert at it. Use your GI Bill, use your Chapter 31. There's so many resources you can use to get that education so you can make that resume and go after it. And I think that's just a phenomenal way to put it. And I would say this also throughout your career, you will either have read and or written operations orders, right? They tell you exactly how a mission is going to go. The most important one you're ever going to write is the one for the next phase of your life. So please take it seriously and you don't have to go through a format, but understand that the planning process and intent that goes through a mission and apply it to yourself because the military doesn't love you back. It can't. It's physically impossible. You have to love yourself enough to take that step forward and use your military service as a great platform and launching point to do great and wonderful things once your time in uniform is out.
I am so glad you said what you said about the military loving you back. Um, that is that perspective is it's like ingrained in us that
Hmm.
you have to love your service so much so and you can love your service. I don't think that's a bad thing, but
Hmm.
understanding that it won't be reciprocated. Like this is a huge entity.
Right.
These are not individual people. The individual people, they love you. They care about
Right.
you. They're the ones that want to do something for you. So like when you get out and you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to go to get my my disability rating cuz I like that's for somebody else. That's not for me.
Hmm.
That absolutely is for you, and let me tell
Yep.
you why, because you earned it. Like, let the VA decide what your disability rating is. You don't need to
Hmm.
decide that for yourself, and
Yeah.
there are benefits out there for you that you earned, right? It's not that the military gave it to you. You gave part of your life for that service, and that is
Mhm.
yours to get.
100%, and it's not entitlement, it's recouping
Yep.
something you own, are owned and deserve. Emotionally, it sounds like, transition was pretty easy, but it did come with, a couple hiccups, if you don't mind, explaining those a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, where do I start? So, as I was transitioning and doing a lot of like self discovery, I also realized that my marriage was not fantastic. And my ex husband, my now ex husband, he had already gotten out. He and I were serving at the same time. And I was like, "Wow, okay, this is kind of a good time to make some big changes. If we're gonna do it, let's do it."
Do
So
it
we
all.
got divorced, right? I was like, "We're done," right? And I had a almost 3-year-old, so the decision was made. We got divorced, and I also moved from Hawaii, my last duty station, to New Jersey because that's where I was going to go to school. I started going to school at Rowan University, and I had my kiddo with me, and I was a single mom and doing the thing. I mean, like lots of challenges, but at the
Mhm.
same time. Again, this was like that excitement that I was talking about like the future, looking at the all of the possibilities ahead of me. I mean, I lived in an awful apartment. I was I was kind of scared of a couple of my neighbors, and there were yeah, it like wasn't great, but um, it was still such an exciting time because I had my son with me. I could really get into the nuts and bolts of like what it meant to really be a mom, and I love being around kids, so it was it was like, Disneyland for me, I guess. I don't know. It was really a lot of fun. I have, pictures of our apartment when we first moved there, and it was summertime. I hadn't started school yet, and I established mom school. So, I mean, each week we had little themes and, we had little work pages that we did and all that. And we'd go to the park and, talk about the theme and, all these things. Yeah, so, like, there definitely were challenges with the divorce and the all of the logistics of that, but then again, just, like, having the perspective of what was lying ahead and what was happening right in front of me, enjoying the time that I have with my son, I think that really helped a lot. Um, and I don't mean to put, to, like, I don't know, broad strokes the whole thing and put a gloss over it. It was hard, um, but it was also easy and because, I really enjoyed sitting with my son and being and, like, thinking about what books I needed to buy for school, and, um, I guess it was more a time of, um like, possibility
Mhm.
than fear, because, I don't even think I had time to fear anything,
Right.
right? Like, you just have to go. Um, but yeah, I don't wanna deny that it was difficult, but it also I think because I just enjoyed the possibilities of it that it made it easier.
I love that. It sounds like you were very present, like, wherever your feet were, that's where you were gonna put your energy into, and if you were gonna allow yourself to drift, you can drift forward and not relish in the past. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
didn't have
Um,
time for that.
was there ever a point where, like, you really you've admitted it was hard, you're a single mom, you moved literally from one side of the planet to the other, from Hawaii to Jersey, both in, climate and, geography, but was it ever you just, like, you had to focus on that day instead of, something more long term, like the next week, month, or year?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, I love my oldest son. I have 2 kids, now, but, my oldest son, boy, what a pickle he was when he was that age. Um, and when you're doing it by yourself, there's no breaks, you know? And when you're doing it by yourself and you don't have the same paycheck, and, you're thinking about, um, the vegetables that he's eating. You're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, I know that's not your favorite, but this is what we got, man. You gotta shove it in your face, okay? Just do it, please." And you don't want to, okay? So what are we gonna do? Okay, you're just gonna scream. All right. And then, it is what it is. I think, it's it was just, the real life stuff, but just doing it alone. That's what made it hard.
Yeah.
Um, and when the sometimes it was hourly with that child. Um, my oldest son, um, taught me the very valuable lesson that I think, a lot of parents don't realize until much later, and that is that the absolute truth is that you cannot tell any human being what to do.
Mhm.
They're gonna do it or they're not. And my son taught me that.
I love that. I mean, it's very akin that you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. You can
Very
tell
true.
you can talk till you're blue in the face. People are gonna make the choice or they're not.
Yep.
Um, so how did your next chapter really begin taking shape once you're in New Jersey, you know what the plan is, what did that look like moving forward?
Oh boy, I really poured myself into school. I had so my I transferred eventually to Brown. I started at Rowan University studying early childhood education, Spanish, and writing because I don't do anything easy. um, and for my writing classes, we had several readings that you have to do. It's just, like part of the process. And I would read them twice every time.
Mm,
I would read through them one time just to like get a feel for it was usually stories, right? Because I took a lot of like creative writing classes. And I'd get a feel for the story, just kinda like initial feelings, and then I would return back to it and take notes and, like, "This is a metaphor. This is what they did with this," and it was more, like the conventions. I would take note of the conventions that were happening, um and so I spent a year and a half in New Jersey doing that, and, my now husband and I, eventually, got married, and, um, he was stationed out in Hawaii, and I was in New Jersey, and when we got married, um, if he was like, "Hey, I'm up for orders, so maybe I think I should try to get stationed on the East Coast." And I was like, "Oh, great. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Then we could at least be in the same time zone." Right?
mhm,
Like, whoo. So, serendipitously, he got orders to Rhode Island, and in the Navy band, uh, program, that was the closest band that he could get to where I was. And so he and I were talking. My husband has a lot of education. He has his doctorate in, musical arts, and so he has plenty of experience in higher education. I
mhm.
do not. My parents didn't even graduate high school, so the whole idea of going to college, was kind of that in and of itself was just a challenge. So my husband, suggested to me that I transfer schools, and I had never thought about that. I thought, like, the transferring of schools, like, why would you even do that? And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I guess I could try." And, if not for my husband encouraging me to apply to, Brown, I never would have. Um, he and having talked to him later, about, like, years later after graduated and all of that, I was like, "Man, that like, why on earth would you suggest that to me?" And for anyone in the audience who doesn't know, Brown University is an Ivy League school. I
Mhm.
didn't know that. I say that for your audience because I didn't know that when I applied. Like, you know, like, why would you do that? I don't like, why wouldn't you do the research on that? I don't know. I didn't. And so, looking back, I asked my husband, like, why would you suggest that to me? Why on earth? And he's like, I wouldn't have suggested it if I didn't think you could get in. Like, all right, fair enough. So that's how we got to me applying for Brown University and actually getting in. And it was like the craziest moment ever because maybe not the craziest moment. We'll get to that one. But it was quite a moment. You like you've applied to a school, and I'm sure plenty of your audience members have had this experience. Like you're waiting for the mail to come and all of that. And this was back when they sent things by snail mail,
Right?
and I opened up my mailbox at the apartment complex, and I looked and I was like, "Oh, it's from Brown. Oh, it's a thick one. That's gotta be good, right?" And I mean, I literally fell to my knees in the stupid parking lot where the mailboxes were, 'cause I was like, "Oh my god, this is," and I'm crying. Um, yeah, so that was the transition to Brown, or at least not the transition, at least I found out I got in.
That's awesome. And I I wonder if you had known it was an Ivy League, if that would have hindered your thought process in applying.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think I would have self-selected out.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said self-select. I had Katie Molly on. She works with Warrior Scholar, and they work, with Harvard and Brown and these great universities on getting enlisted folks into college. And her main message on during her episode was do not self-select. So I'm glad it's a repeated theme. Okay, so we know what brought you to Brown. What is it you do at Brown these days?
Ooh, okay, so now I work in the Office of Military Affiliated Students. I know that's a shocker to everyone that I would have made that transition. Um, but even I mean, my path to this job wasn't even a straight line.
Mhm.
You would think that, "Oh, okay, so she did her undergrad and then she just took on this job." That's actually not what happened. So I did my undergrad, um oh, yeah, the fun crazy fact that happened in that time period. So I finished my first year, in between the summer of my first and second year, I'm working at a nonprofit, an urban agriculture nonprofit, and, I find out that I'm pregnant with my second child. Like, "Okay, so here we go," right? Like, the adventure really begins now. Um, so I had my second child, uh, had to take some time off, like a semester off, go back to school, finish out, do the thing, right? And then my husband gets orders because we were able to stay in Rhode Island for 4 years on
Mm,
his orders. It was great. And then he got orders to Virginia. Every Navy person has to go to Norfolk pretty much if you stay in long enough, right?
yeah,
So I go to Norfolk. We're there for 3 years, and in that time, I did quite a variety of things. I got a job eventually working in government contracting. I was working in an HR office for the Navy. Um, I hated the job, I loved the people. I worked
yeah.
in an office with just, like, a fantastic team of it was all women, actually, it was really amazing, Um, because I had never had that kind of experience before, and at the same time, I was volunteering as the lead for the Military Spouse Professional Network, in Hampton Roads, which is like a huge region.
Yeah.
Um, and my co-lead, I had a co-lead at the time. I would be remiss if I did not say I had a co-lead because she was so fantastic, and several other volunteers who were helping out. And we did a lot of work during COVID to switch to virtual events and all of that. The other thing I was doing at the same time, was, I told you I don't do anything easy. Um, I started an organization called the MHA Gap Initiative. That stands for Monthly Military Housing Allowance. This is like when you're using your GI Bill and you get a housing stipend. They call it
Mhm.
MHA. Nobody calls it that. Um, but the idea of this organization was to help military affiliated students who are using a GI Bill find paid work when they're between semesters, right? Because, like, when you're a student using the GI Bill, you don't get your housing stipend if you're not in the classroom. So, through my work with the Military Spouse Professional Network, I was connected to a lot of people in the business community in Hampton Roads who were doing a lot of work for, military spouses and all of that. And I raised my hand at one point and was like, "Hey, I think we should do something about this problem." Um, because there's a lot of military affiliated students in our region, and I think they could really benefit from a program like this.
Mhm.
And so through that work, I came in contact with my now boss, right? Now, this is a plug for networking. Okay. I know.
Yes.
I
Yes.
know a lot of people are very hesitant about networking. They think it's like this fake thing or whatever.
Right.
It's just conversations with people. That's all that it is. Right. So I'm in Virginia. I call up my now boss, who's in Rhode Island, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing here in Virginia, and I would love to bring it to Brown because I'm an alum, and I have a soft spot in my heart for the students at Brown." And he gave me the time of day and wanted to hear what I had to say. So it was like maybe we had one or two conversations, and that was it. And we connected on LinkedIn and whatever. And then magically, serendipitously, a job posting lands in my LinkedIn, on my feed, and it was the job that I have now, and I was like, "Hey, Mac," my boss, uh, "can you tell me about this? Like, what is this job? This sounds really cool." So, he sent me the job description, all of that, and now I have this job. But I have the job. So, what I love about this job is that it is unique to Brown. At least I think so. I haven't seen other universities that do it exactly the way that we do. A lot of other universities tie their uh, certifying official duties into the kinds of work that I do, like advocacy and
Mhm.
whatever. But we don't do it that way. So it really allows me the opportunity to sit one on one with students and do the thing that I really like to do and I think that I'm kind of good at, connect them to resources and do all that. Um, and big picture, what I get to do is I run a peer mentorship program that is kind of my baby, and part of it is modeled off of the work from the MHA Gap Initiative, and some of it is just, I think when you build a program, you have to build it based on the context of the situation,
Yeah.
rather than like, oh, I just think it'll be a great idea. Um, so it sort of marries a couple of things together. But the peer mentorship program, the goal of it, there's a few goals. The first one is to transition folks into the university, right? We're talking about military affiliated students. A lot of them are
Mhm.
first generation. There's a lot about being at a school that they don't understand, not
Yep.
because they're dumb, they just don't know it.
Right.
No one has said to them, "This is what
Yep.
office hours are." So help them transition to the university and do that through a peer mentor, rather than a staff member, because you can have all of the experience in the world as a staff member, but there's still that like weirdness that you would have,
Mhm.
like that you won't have with a peer. Connect them to a peer mentor, help them transition to the university, right? Then we help them with like professional development events and things like that. Like, let's do some networking. Let's talk about your resume. Let's talk about like all these things, and then prepare you for an internship. Do an internship. At the same time, let's get you prepared to be a mentor yourself. So then those same students who were new, now they are mentoring the students who are coming in. Okay, so now you're doing your internship, you're a mentor, you're doing all those things, and now you're getting ready to graduate. So you're going to graduate, you're going to get a job, you're going to do all those awesome things that an alum does, and you've already got this mentorship experience that you can then use to come back and mentor current students. So it's this really full cycle kind of program. And I get to manage that. And that is like the coolest thing that I've ever done. And I love it.
That sounds phenomenal. And for listeners, um if you've been stationed overseas, they call it the sponsorship program. So like when I got to Germany, obviously my family and I don't know anything about Germany, so they assign you someone of the same rank and they're like, "Hey man, when you get here, I'll meet you at the airport. We'll take you to the hotel so you know where it is." And they get you accustomed to the traditions, the customs, courtesies, get they're your resource on ground, so you're not just walking blindly into a really new awkward environment. And I love that you're doing it because for a lot of military people going to college, it's probably worse than going to war because there's a stigma, especially if you're an enlisted guy or girl, that college is the devil and that's only for officers. And how dare you try to be smart? Like we've already talked about that, but I love that Brown is very intentional, especially with you, because I can see you crushing it that, hey, you're here. This is a really challenging environment, but you're not alone, and you're not gonna do it alone. We have someone who's been in your shoes to help you along. I think that's fantastic. What have you found that surprises student veterans the most? Coming into Brown, coming into an Ivy League environment.
Oh, I think people, and I include myself in this, I think there is again, this goes back to, kind of what you were saying is, like, college is the devil, right? Um, there is an assumption that a lot of us come with that being at an Ivy League school means that the traditionally aged students around us are all very wealthy and they're jerks, and it's
Hmm.
just not true.
Right.
I think there is a lot of wealth, and, that absolutely exists, and it at surprising levels sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
it's shocking to me sometimes. Um, but at the same time, some of those students are the most curious people I've ever met. They really
Hmm.
want to, not everybody's this way, but, they lean in and they wanna know, like, I've never met anyone in the military. You might be the very first person they've
Right.
ever met who's had military experience, and they don't know what to ask, right? And, they might ask awkward questions. I think, that happens,
Yeah.
but, um but I think that is the most surprising part of the transition for people is that, like, we we lowly enlisted folks, we have these deeply preconceived notions that,
Yeah.
like, about the upper crust, and
Hmm.
some of that is absolutely true, but some of it is just like, nah, they're just people like we are."
Yeah. That's so true. Because you hear, and a lot of it's Hollywoodized or glamorized through TV, and it's fiction, they're stories. Um, have you encountered where veterans still feel kind of invisible, even in strong academic environments?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can imagine, so there's a pretty famous, course at Brown called The Cost of War,
Hmm.
and you could imagine in a classroom like that where you have real world experience. Not myself, I do not have that experience, but as, some of our students do have that experience, um, and the professor might say something that contradicts that completely. And, from your experience in the military, you might feel like you can't say anything.
Right.
Um, Now, I always encourage students, especially in an academic setting, if you have an experience that completely, would shift the conversation, find a way to talk about it that is tactful.
Right.
Maybe it's not appropriate to bring it up in the full classroom setting. Maybe it's
Hmm.
not. Um, but I think part of going to school is opening up not just your own mind, but the people
But other
around
people.
you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that sometimes, as military students, we feel like because the thing that you're about to say isn't either popular or commonly known, maybe you need to keep it to yourself. But I would
Hmm.
say that's the reason you should say something.
Right. Because you're the point of college is to learn. It's not to go with your preconceived notions and thoughts and get certified that what I think is right. It's to learn. And hopefully, like you said, people can challenge what you're thinking and what you're seeing, and you can challenge them right back in a tactful way. I think our society has lost the ability to have a difference of opinions in a cordial manner, which is really sad. Um, in office hours, guys, if you're going to college or you're planning on going to college, look, this is not your high school teacher. These are experts in their field. They are professionals. They probably hold one, if not multiple doctorates, playing to their ego. Who doesn't want to talk? If you want to talk to me about baseball, we'll sit here for hours. You know, I can, that's my thing. I love baseball. So you want to, and I teach theory of baseball. You want to come in, you won't leave and you'll get an A. But if it's an uncomfortable conversation, even more of a reason go talk to your professor. But utilize it. They're there for a reason. They're almost hand selected. I mean, you have to apply, but people are sought out for those positions. Engage them, use the office hours, talk to them because you're going to get a wealth of knowledge and experience that you're not going to get in any other environment, which is one on one with probably a world class profession.
And I would add, I think talking to professors also broadens their perspective. And these
Hmm.
are super nerds just like me.
Yeah.
Right? I remember a couple of times I met with a professor who was like, "Wow, you're a veteran, huh? That's interesting." And they want to know, right? Or I had one professor in environmental studies, and his kids were all older. They were probably my age, and he was having grandkids at the same time I was pregnant. And he's like, "Oh, so have you thought about cloth diapering?" Like, yeah, actually, I have. So they learn from you, you learn from them, and
Yes.
to further this point about networking, when you are thinking about grad school, those
Hmm.
professors are the ones that you will reach out to for letters of recommendation, and that
Yep.
matters. It does.
It really does. When I was retiring, I went through a divorce. I was going to Michigan State University for my master's, and I could not get a job in Detroit. Like, I wasn't looking for six figures. I wasn't trying to do anything crazy. It's Detroit. It's a major American city. Plenty of jobs. I couldn't find a job, and I reached out to my professors, and they're like, "Hey, man, expand your search radius." I did to like 60 miles, and I got a job in Lansing at the state capitol a week later. Like, professors are phenomenal, and they do write letters of recommendation. It's huge. As long as you're not a dick, like
Yeah.
they're not, you know. um, so I'm sure you see veterans that arrive highly capable, but they still kind of wonder if they belong. Are there patterns that you've noticed in those that thrive versus just survive?
Mm, that's an interesting question. I don't know that I've noticed patterns. I think um, everybody comes to this from their own place. Um, but at the same time, I have noticed. I don't know that I would say it's a pattern, but the I'm not sure that everybody uses the term anymore, but oh gosh, what is that? When you imposter syndrome, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think that's kind of fallen out of fashion these days. But whether it's fallen out of fashion or not, it is true that
Right.
people, you feel like you shouldn't be there. Like, I didn't earn this. I didn't, like, why would they pick me? And I often have to have a conversation with them to remind them that, admissions saw something in you,
Yeah.
right? They're not going to admit you with the thought that you're going to fail. Like, they don't do
Right.
that because it looks
Right.
bad.
Yeah.
Like, come on. So, remember that when you're sitting in a classroom and you're like, "Whoa, I shouldn't be here." The fact is you absolutely should be there, and your voice matters. So, I guess if I were to notice a pattern, it would be that I see people question their own place in the world frequently. And,
Yeah.
and I kinda like that I get to be the mirror for them to be like, "No, actually, you're pretty awesome. Let's talk about why."
I love that. This brings me to that self-selecting all over again. In the military, we want, that we um are high performers, SEALs, Rangers, SF. You go through a selection process, and there's this stigma where they want you to fail and all this stuff. And I think the same concept goes to college. They don't want you to fail. When you apply to go to Ranger School, when you apply to go to Special Forces, when you apply to go to Buds, when you apply to go to Pararescue School, when you apply to go to Brown, is there a chance you won't get in? Yeah, absolutely. They're looking for a certain type of person, not a mold, but certain characteristics. But it's bad for their brand if they select you and you fail. Like, you have to look at it the other way, which is what I'm glad you said, which is a mirror. Like, we saw something in you. We want you here. We believe that you are going to bring value to us and we can bring value to you as well. Um, it- when you've had those conversations, are there any stories like or interactions with students that really stick out?
Mm. Um, yeah, I think about, I won't name any names, but, I think about, you talked about WSP, so Warrior Scholar Project.
Mhm,
Um, I've had, talk about a privilege. I've had the amazing experience of, Brown hosts a Warrior Scholar
mhm,
Project
yep,
cohort every year, and I meet some incredible folks. And when I say incredible, I don't mean that they are these brilliant academics. They're enlisted folks that are
mhm,
interested, not even in, not, they're not even like actively in college yet, but they're
right,
thinking about it. And I get to watch them have these aha moments like, "Oh, okay, yeah. eh, I never thought I'd read Plato and understand it." Yeah, you just need a framework, right? You just need somebody to sit down with you and go like, "Yeah, okay, so this is how you think about it. This is how
yep,
we have, thought about it." Um, and I think it's those I don't wanna say a specific person, but I mean, I get to watch people transition from Warrior Scholar Project and then into the university, and now we haven't had anybody, transition from WSP to Brown and then, graduate yet, but when that happens, I mean, my heart will just soar.
mhm,
It's I mean, that's what I love about the mentorship program, is watching people through their process. And I think, in my heart, I'm probably, a teacher. Like, I think
right,
there's a big part of me that just I would love to be in a classroom, because
yeah,
that's exactly what happens when you're a teacher of any kind, whether you're a professor
yeah,
or, you're teaching, like, little kids. Um, is that moment where someone realizes they can do it for themselves because you showed them that they could. You didn't
mhm,
do it. They did it, you know? I This is a tangent, but I am queen of the tangents. I've dubbed myself this, in my public health program. I'm a master's student too. There's that. But um, but I will never forget, when I was transitioning out of the military, I, trained as a early childhood music teacher, so it was like Mommy and Me style classes, but it was,
okay,
like, family-centered music classes. So it was for ages 0 to 5. So the goal was not to teach the kids music at all. You're not teaching a
right,
0-month-old anything, to do with music at that point. It's about teaching the adults in the room that it's okay and good and exciting to create a musical environment for kids to be in so that they can then be comfortable in a musical environment and be musical themselves, right? In any way that it makes sense for them. And I will never forget having a conversation with a parent who shows up on day one and he's like, "Hey, I can't carry a tune in a bucket, so you're not going to teach me anything." Basically, it was like, "Okay, cool. I bet you by the end of this session, you'll be singing in parts." And guess what? He was. It's not like a crazy thing. People, this is true whether it's a musical classroom or any other classroom. Everyone walks into a classroom with some sort of emotional baggage.
yep,
Um, in a musical classroom, it's musical emotional baggage. It's
mhm,
everybody thinks they have to perform. And when you strip away the all of the weight of performance, man, people just go like, "Wow, it's actually kind of fun to be musical." You know?
right,
Like, just make the sound of a train whistle. It's not difficult. You just that if I told you how, like, what all the technical stuff around it was, that would freak you out. We don't have to do that. You just, like, mirror what I'm doing, and then guess what? You did it, right? It's the same thing with these crazy, difficult academic, experiences,
Mhm.
You just have the right teacher to sit down with you and say, "This is how you can think about it," and then you do, and I think that's what, I've that those are the stories that stick with me the most.
Yeah. I think you came up with one of the best, definitions of leadership that I've come across lately, which is leadership isn't showing people your superpowers, it's showing them the superpowers they have within themselves. Um, and I love that it did music, like, I love music, I've always loved music, I don't play an instrument well, I sang in choir, I lost that ability, but I have a playlist for everything. And it's different. Like, yard work is one playlist, the gym's another playlist. If we're hosting an event, it's a different like, it's that's just how my brain works. Um, it has been a wonderful conversation, and it's coming to an end, but I do have 2 more questions. Um, what would you tell a veteran entering a new environment, with a reputation of being, stellar and difficult like Brown, an excellent place, right? Not known for, um, being average. What would you tell them if they're wondering if they belong?
I would say you're there for a reason. I can't tell you what that reason is, but you're
Mhm.
there for a reason. So, kinda play with that, you know? Be curious, be joyful, and, um, and stay engaged. Like, talk to people. I know that can be hard, um, but again, it's just, like, talking to someone doesn't have to be scary, you
Right.
know? Um, the, I have a really funny story, um, about this goes back to when I was in Virginia. Um, this is a story of, like, you never know who's in the room, so you just kinda be who you are no matter what.
Yep.
Um, I was at the Hampton Roads, Chamber of Commerce Military Affairs Council. Sounds very fancy, kinda is. There's, like, all these business leaders in the room, a lot
Mhm.
of them are retired officers and very high ranking,
Yep.
and it's mostly men. I was, like, one of maybe 2 or 3 women in the room, and this is my first time in this meeting, and I was there to talk about military spouse employment issues in the region. And I walk in and everybody's getting coffee, they're doing the thing, everybody knows everybody, but nobody knows me. And this one person walked over to me, didn't know who he was. And he was like, "Oh, you're Becky, right? Like you're here to talk about all the military spouse ladies, right?" And I was like, "Well, actually, 93% of us happen to be women or identify as women, but 7% of us identify as male." And he was like, "Oh, okay, great. I see you. And I'll talk to you later." And he goes to sit down and he sat down at the chairman's spot. And I was like, "Oh, snap." Like, okay, so he was a chairman. However, he was also a retired 3-star general. And I was like, dang, didn't know that either. But I set the tone for our relationship in that
Absolutely.
moment because I stood in my I stood in my truth, man. I knew that statistic and I knew it off the
Mhm.
top of my head and I was like, "Boom, there you go. We're not all women. We don't all identify as women. So you need to know that." Especially if like you're here to listen about spouse employment issues, you should totally know that.
Right.
So that's that yeah. So like uh I think be who you are no matter the room.
Yeah. Authenticity matters, man.
Yep.
Um, because I think, putting on that uniform, you can be somebody. I was Superman. When I put on my uniform, I could do anything. I I was invincible, um, which is great, but it also was a false identity, one that I've learned painfully over the last few years. That's not exactly who I am, but I like who I am now. Unfortunately, we're all going to pass away at some point, and at some point, someone's going to stand. at a venue and speak about you, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, man. Ouch. Um, I just want people to be happy that they knew me. Um, I mean, legacy sounds to me like almost an exercise in arrogance? I know that's not
Mhm.
the point of your question, so I don't mean to make it sound like you're
Nope.
asking me a bad question, but, I kinda think that that's where it's rooted, though, is this idea of, like, how I want people to remember what I
Mhm.
did and, like, it's all about me. It's not about me. I just hope that people enjoyed being around me when I was around them, you know? Because I enjoy being around people.
And it's a great way. I love that way your brain works. And, I've asked this question to everybody. Nobody has said anything about having fancy cars, a ton of money, the titles they had. Everything revolves around the impact they've had on other people. And this is episode 31 or 32. Like, that's 30 people who have come on, and nobody has said, "Nope, I want people to remember me for materialistic things." It's about the impact they make on others. So we're batting 1,000. What's the musical version of like a perfect performance? What would you call that?
Oh, studio recording.
There you go. You gave a studio recording response. We're studio recording. Becky, this is phenomenal. It's been a joy having on your story. Is so unique. It's so fun. It's so positive. And I thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Wow, what a really thoughtful conversation. I think a lot of veterans, students, parents, and leaders are going to take something meaningful away from it. Becky, you are so awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, isn't she so personable and endearing? You can tell she just has a zeal for life and what she does. Becky, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. One of the things that stood out most to me in this conversation was how many doors in life never actually get closed on us. We just convince ourselves not to walk through them. As Becky said, she almost talked herself out of Brown before she ever even applied. Not because she lacked intelligence, not because she lacked discipline, not because she lacked experience, but because somewhere along the way, she convinced herself people like her probably didn't belong in places like that. I think a lot of us do this after service. We spend years operating in high pressure environments, leading teams, solving problems, constantly adapting, and then we transition out and suddenly we question whether we belong in classrooms, businesses, leadership roles, or entirely new spaces. And this conversation was a reminder that growth requires curiosity, it requires humility, and sometimes it requires being willing to walk into rooms that feel uncomfortable until you realize you earned your place there the entire time. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. And thank you for continuing to share these conversations with others. My book, The Invisible Veteran Rediscovering Purpose, Identity, and Connection After Service, officially releases on May 26th. You can pre order it now through Ballast Books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Walmart. If this episode resonated with you, please consider leaving a rating, a review, sharing it with somebody who might need it. If you pre order, shoot us a DM. We're doing something special for early supporters. And most importantly, if this episode resonated with you, please hear me. You're not alone. Transition is hard, identity shifts are hard, healing is hard. None of that has to occur in isolation. Reach out, have the conversation, initiate the tough conversation, the one you've been avoiding. Take the first step. When you do, make sure you're talking to someone who's a fountain, not a drain, someone who pours into you, not someone who takes from you. Be the leader in your own life. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, YouTube, and Amazon Music at enduring underscore mindset underscore enterprise. Check out the website, www.enduringmindsetenterprise.com. Learn more about the book, the business. Started posting articles on there, and our new nonprofit arm, the Enduring Mindset Foundation. This has been the Enduring Mindset podcast, reminding you that your past may shape you, but it does not have to define you. Until next time, onward, forward, fall out.